I think everyone has heard of Cowboy Bebop, either it be through its famous ending, its music, or the iconic characters, or even the cringy aesthetic throws people make. I think everyone has at least seen or heard something from the show, and there's a good reason why. That reason being because Cowboy Bebop is an indisputable masterpiece. Everything the show seeks out to do, it accomplishes it with flying colors. There's not one aspect of the show that Bebop falls flat on. Its characters are fully developed and complete each of the arcs in their entirety. The story is a bittersweet tragedy of being stuck in the past and being stagnant in it. The music and composition of each song is a love letter to jazz and blues as a whole, even dappling into other areas like old-time western. It's no surprise that Bebop is considered one of, if not the greatest anime of all time. The show is the fourth highest rated anime of all time on IMDb. If you couldn't tell by now, there will be some major spoilers in this video, so I'd recommend you to go watch some Bounty Hunter action first before coming back. But if you're good to go, listen up, because my name is Angle, and let me tell you about the brilliance of Bebop.
I think it's time to blow this scene. Get everybody in the stuff together. Okay, 3, 2, 1, let's jam.
Cowboy Bebop has a pretty weird origin to its production process. It was produced by the animation studio Sunrise, and the general concept of the idea was created by Yajime Yatatate, probably butchered that, but the lead director was Shironiro Watanabe. It was Watanabe's first project as a solo director, as he'd been a co-director in his previous creations. His original idea was to make a movie, which would eventually happen after the end of the show, but because of that mindset, he treated every episode as a mini-movie. He gained most inspiration from another anime of the name of Lupin 3. He wanted to develop the story around the characters. He stated that the first image that occurred to me was one of Spike, and from there I wanted to build a story around him, trying to make him look cool. He wanted the show to be 80% serious while 20% humorous, and he even admitted to saying that the humor was harder to make than creating tension in situations. After getting out of a deal that would make a show solely aimed to sell spaceship toys to kids, Watanabe wanted to create a show that was very interesting and action-packed to appeal to the younger demographic, while also creating a show that adults would enjoy and analyze as well. Watanabe would state to the team various times that this show would be something memorable in 30 years, and he was completely right in his rallying efforts. Cowboy Bebop first came onto screen on TV Tokyo, airing from April 3rd until June 26, 1998. But due to that time's very graphic scenes, only certain episodes aired, but eventually the show was aired in its entirety from October 24th to April 24th, 1999. Bebop's plot is organized in this Monster of the Week format that shows like Scooby-Doo would conduct. Each episode's primary focus is usually about a bounty or about one of the characters on the Bebop. It's all about the crew's misadventures throughout the star system and how they constantly get themselves into trouble. But trust me, it gets much deeper than that. Each bounty is a full-blown adventure, either be the smallest of small fries or going up against criminals that put whole planets at stake. There's not one scene wasted in Cowboy Bebop, and I mean that in all sincerity. Each scene in all of the 26 sessions are used to the fullest and have some purpose to them. Either be action, comedic intent, foreshadowing, character development, every single one is used to the fullest extent. Take for example the opening scene of the entire series. It's Spike throwing a cigarette on the ground, carrying roses, as he goes to kill various members of his syndicate, and from what we are shown, dies. It completely foreshadows one of the biggest plot points before even a word is said in the show. Even the one-off characters go through full arcs in the 25-minute time frame. Each member of the Bebop crew all share one thing, however, which is that they're all static. It's fitting for a show to be set in space, as all the characters are stuck in time until they face it. Session 10, Janamine Elegy, is a perfect example, or even a literal example, of how our character Jet is stuck in time. The episode is about Jet meeting with the woman who left him while they were together, and how he faces going back to her, to finally know why she did it. As he talks to her at the bar, he says that when she left he went numb, and that time stopped for him. He states that he made a pledge to himself that he would start a new life if she didn't return by the time the watch stopped. He then got caught up in bounty hunting as he's still stuck in time, never knowing what he did wrong. Jet as a whole is the most stable character of the entire crew. In the same scene, he even talks about how all he needed in his life was stability. But even then, that in itself doesn't even get fulfilled, as eventually the majority of the Bebop crew depart or die. He was never met with stability in his life, only until he took control of it. At the end of the session where he painstakingly arrests his past lover and her boyfriend, he throws the watch into the river, which figuratively and quite literally means he's moved on. He's achieved the closure necessary for him to not be static. The genius of the show is that it can be watched and analyzed in so many different ways. You can simply view it as this character-driven story of bounty hunters and their adventures and how they come to this bittersweet ending. Or you can view it through this philosophical medium of being stuck in the past and living in this dream. Each of the characters face their own trauma and shall reject their past instead of eventually facing it. This is true for them except for Faye Valentine, who is inadvertently trying to face her missing past. She is the most cynical and at most times causing problems for the group, but it's all an effort for her to try and face her past. Seeing her watch her childhood self in those VHS tapes, knowing that all those moments, people, and even herself in a way are dead is heartbreaking. She even says herself that she's a ghost from the beyond. She's been abandoned by life itself, waking up in this mysterious land and being crippled with debt that will take a life's work to pay off. But then she meets the Bebop crew and finally sees the future and makes meaningful connections, all until it's taken away from her as well. It makes that final scene with Spike that much more impactful. Taking a turn for the depressing side, let's talk about our favorite duo, Ed and Ian, the two geniuses of the ship. The role of the crew is essential because it brings everyone closer together. It would simply be by Ed asking how the bounties go and the rest of the group blabbing off talking over one another, or Ed and Ian hacking and getting info for the crew. I think Ed and Ian's departure kind of sets a tonal shift in the show. Sure, there are very still comedic moments, but you never really got to see all the members together socializing like you did when Ed was there, and it showed the role she played, being the sense of unity. With that, we are left with Spike Spiegel. What makes his character so iconic can be summed up in one scene, I believe. That scene coming from Session 19, Wild Horses. I thought it'd be fun to have some of my friends voice this scene, just in case I get copyrighted again, or even blocked in some situations. Hopefully it isn't complete garbage.
Doohan, you saved my ass.
Not yet. Most of the heat resistance tiles have peeled off. The temperature is rising.
Ah! The landing wheels aren't retracting!
Yup. And the number 2 nozzle won't work either.
What? Are you for real? We can't land with
Oh
them!
well.
I knew I
Whatever
should've come up
happens,
here. I'm only 18.
happens.
I don't want to die yet. I've never even been with a woman. Somebody help!
He displays a smooth, calm demeanor, even when facing death time and time again. I think his character represents the core themes and messages of the show fully. Themes of loneliness and facing your past, living day to day, bounty to bounty, with nothing in sight for the future. Spike constantly reaffirms the idea that he is stuck in this dream, that life is all but a dream and he is just waiting to be woken up by it. That moment he knows life is real and is woken up from it is when he sees Julia's dead body in his arms. Julia is what will make him snap out of this limbo, so to speak. He even states multiple times that a part of him died when she left, which makes us, the viewer, understand what he eventually did. Not that he had nothing to live for, but he realized that he had to face his past to protect the ones he cared about in the present so they could have a future. But we can't talk about Spike without talking about Vicious. Vicious is crucial in the whole story of Bebop, either be as a main antagonist or to be what moves Spike to be out of the static character frame. When the main story progresses, it always involves Vicious in some way. If you remember my Remember Reach video, see what I did there? I said, remember my Remember Reach video. I said, remember, get it? Get the joke? Anyway, back to the video. I talked about the concept of characters being developed over a short period of time, and then them being taken away from you just as quickly, and Cowboy Bebop follows suit to that same concept. Over these 26 sessions, we were exposed to actual people trying to make amends for their past. Either be to get answers to the uncertainties in life, trying to find out their past, or simply trying to wake up from this dream they believe they are in. But it turns out the only way to make amends is for us to lose those characters. It's a beautifully put together story, but there is one thing that is just as important to Cowboy Bebop as the story is, and that's its music. Bebop's music dictates everything in the show. The pacing, the action, the emotion. The lead composer, Yoko Kanno, stated that the majority of the music was developed first, making it a key part of the show. She dabbles in various genres in the show and incorporates each and every song wonderfully throughout the show. Session 1, Asteroid Blues, is a great example, even considering it's the first episode. The music fits the tone and scene so well, the tempo changes according to the event displayed, and it goes second natured with the detailed animation. The show has one of the most well-known OPs throughout anime, with the iconic line of,
I think it's time to blow this scene, get everybody in the stuff together. Okay, 3, 2, 1, let's jam.
Music is such a key component of the replayability of Bebop. I'm not one for listening to OSTs of anime or TV shows for that matter, but for some reason I would always come back to listen to the Real Folk Blues or Rush. There is so much soul and care put into the music, and it shows how perfect Kano wanted it to be. She even went as far as creating a band so they could perform it to perfection. Her work on the show will be recognized as Brilliance for decades to come. Also, quick tidbit here, Mai Yamame's live performance of the Real Folk Blues is so good. The video quality is kind of but it's worth the watch. I'll leave a link in the description if you want to watch it. If you couldn't tell by me gushing about the show's music that I like the OST, its the main OPs and tracks are constant in my videos. But anyway, another huge thing to mention is the voice acting. The English dub is phenomenal. I think something that makes the show such a damn icon is its splash screens in between breaks and the classic "See You, Space Cowboy" line at the end of every session, or a slight change to whatever pertains to each session. I think they add so much character and make every session feel like more of an experience than just an episodic adventure. I couldn't talk about everything the show does so well without going into more detail about its magnum opus, its ending. The most important thing the show delivers by far. We come to our bounty hunter's end split into two sessions. Session 25 and Session 26 titled The Real Folk Blues. It opens up with the dark skies and streets of Mars, watching Julia roam and being notified that she has a target on her back. Afterwards, we see Vicious attempt to kill the elders of the Syndicate but gets caught. The elders then denounce him and jail him accordingly. We're shown Jet and Spike drinking away at the loser's bar as they get ambushed by the Red Dragon Syndicate. They fight them off with only minor injuries, but are then saved by Double Agent Shin. He informs them about the situation. They manage to leave the bar to get Jet patched up. We're then finally shown context to that opening scene of the whole series, and we see Julia and Spike talk about their plans to get away from it all. He tells her to meet him by the graves, but then Vicious finds out and forces her to kill him, or they both die. Also, another huge but super minor thing that I love was how they finished Alfredo's arc, or more known as the Big Shot host. He picks up his mom at the airport and then walks away reassuring her that things will be alright. It's just super heartwarming, but onto the finale. Faye and Spike call and he says to meet up at the ship, but eventually ends in an argument. She gets interrupted by the Red Dragon chasing Julia but then saves her. The two ladies manage to destroy the vehicle effortlessly and then go for a smoke. They split up and Julia tells Faye to tell Spike to meet her up at the place. That place, of course, being the graveyard. We're then shown a very tender moment between Spike and Jet. Jet telling him a story about a man in his dying days climbing up this mountain, but failing. However, in his dying breath, seeing the mountain as a helicopter was taking him up, and reminiscing about that moment. He then tells Spike that people think too much about their past, as if they were searching for proof they were alive. And he's completely right. In people's dying breaths, they want some evidence that they did something, and that they didn't just waste their life. It adds another layer to the overall philosophy of Cowboy Bebop. Not searching for proof that you're alive, but rather being alive. Each character in Bebop, besides partly Jet, is dead. Dead in the fact that they need something or someone to make them feel alive. For Faye, it's her past that she'll never fully remember. And for Spike, it's Julia. But enough from me, and let's get back into the episode. After Jet pleads with Spike to stay and to just forget the past, Spike yet again talks about Julia and how she truly was the first person that was alive, and that she's back. Faye comes back to the ship wanting to see Spike immediately to relay Julia's message. Jet then gets fully informed of the situation from his ISP guy. Faye tells Spike the message and then Spike takes off. The last minutes of part 1 is split between a spaceship fight between Spike and the Red Dragons and Vicious's successful takeover of the Red Dragons, all while smooth jazz plays silently in the background. After the fight, Jet sends Spike to get what he lost, and he does so knowing that it could be the last time seeing him. After Vicious announces he is of single power, we see Spike at the graveyard as Julia lifts a gun at him with a rose in Spike's hand. Quite the cliffhanger for part 1, but in part 2 we see the two talk about the rain, and Julia goes on about how she needed to kill Spike to be free, but was unable to do to his love. She goes in for a hug and to ask if they can just run away, but you can see it in Spike's eyes that he knows there is no running away this time. Julia and Spike are then in a car driving to Annie's store again, but see Annie bleeding out as she says her last words comparing everyone to kites without strings, being lost and undirected. She then dies in Spike's arms as he loads up for a firefight. We see Faye and Jet talk about how Spike could already be gone, but then Jet asks Faye what type of woman Julia was, comparing her to a devil from heaven or an angel from hell. After they talk, we see Spike's firefight, and as Julia and him run off on the rooftops, Julia gets shot in the back, and you see true sadness in Spike's eyes for the first time ever. He holds her in his arms, and she mouths something the viewer isn't able to see. After that scene, Jet goes to a fortune teller, asking if Spike will make it out. And he states that Spike will die soon, and that there is no need to be afraid of death. We see Spike return to the ship in a joyful tune, talking about how bad Jet's cooking is, but enjoying it regardless. Spike then talks about a story about this cat that died a million times, but once becoming a stray cat and meeting a white cat, and then her dying of old age, she cried a million times, not coming back to life. Of course, the story is supposed to symbolize Spike and Julia. Spike living more than once, but knowing that this one will be his last because his lover is gone. Spike then says he hates that story because he never liked cats, and the two have a laugh about it. Then Jet asks if he's doing this all for Julia, but he notifies Jet of Julia's death. We're then shown one of the most iconic scenes from the show, and it's the farewell conversation between Spike and Faye. Faye talks about how Spike once told him that the past didn't matter, but then he himself is tied down to the past. Spike then gets in her face telling her about his eyes, one of them being stuck in the past and one being able to see the present. He states that he thought he was in a dream, but before he knew it, it was over. Faye then talks about how she felt a part of something in the Bebop, and that she didn't need her past because she had Jet and Spike. Then we are met with the Spike send-off. After a send-off, the best scene in all of anime plays. The Real Folk Blues plays as Spike single-handedly infiltrates the Red Dragon headquarters, knowing he's not going to make out of it. It's probably the most badass thing I've ever seen in all of media. Him walking into the building knowing that he's going to take the whole gang down with him. It cultivates everything that makes the show so brilliant. Its actions, animation, its music, everything. Spike is then shot in the arm, but is met up with his double agent Shin, who leads him to where Vicious is. Shin is then shot, but then says that he is waiting for him to come back. We see Spike run to the main lair of the Red Dragon, knowing it will be his final stand. The two stand face to face for the last time, going blow to blow. They then look to each other, and Spike mutters, "Julia's dead, let's finish it now." They each throw back their weapon of choice, and the final blow is sent for each of them. Spike shoots straight through Vicious, and Vicious cutting through Spike one last time. The fight concludes, and we see what Julia said in her last breaths. The words, "It's all just a dream." We then see Spike stumble down the stairs as the rest of the gang looks at him. He then utters the most iconic word of all anime. Bang. The camera then pans out over his dead body as a choir plays in the credits roll. After the credits, we get to see the final scene of Spike smiling as it fades to the final words, "You're gonna carry that weight." The weight of the past it's referring to, facing your past once and for all and putting an end to it. Only he could carry it. If not, then he would lose even more people he cared about. Its finale is just flat out brilliant in every aspect of the word. Cowboy Bebop will be praised for its excellence for as long as anime is still a form of media. Again, it does not fail in any aspect of the show. It delivers time and time again. If you still don't believe me, go rewatch the show again. Cowboy Bebop is my favorite show or anime of all time, and it's not even close. In the making of this video, I fully enjoyed dissecting all the themes and character Bebop presents. You can view the show in any facet, and I think very few forms of media can attempt and succeed this well at it like Bebop does. At the end of it all, I just recommend you to watch this show whenever you have time to travel to outer space with the Bebop crew. With all that being said, thank you for watching, and all the positive feedback I got on my Toradora video, I appreciate it more than you know. And I will see you soon, Space Cowboy.